Welcome everybody, my name is Dr. Cordie Williams, Health from Within Family Wellness Center, and I'm here with the very elegant and lovely Noelle Daly. She's been a practice member for, what would you say, Noelle, probably about 6 months now?
Maybe more, about 8.
Okay, so probably around 6 or 8 months. I'm just, I work with mics all the time, so I can't help myself. I love you, Noelle. And mics get weird to get used to, right? They just kind of get a little weird. But yeah, so about 8 months now. And before you had walked into this office, kind of just talk to us about what was your prior experience with chiropractors? What was kind of your feeling about chiropractic in general?
I had some successes with specific problems that were minor, basically minor. I had nothing, no experiences that addressed anything like the issues that I came in here with, so there's just no comparison.
Okay, so then it sounds like you had kind of been to somebody that was what we call a relief care or symptom care doctor. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And so then you would go in, they would kind of, I always say, rub you, make you feel good, massage you, right? And then you would leave, but there was never any type of transformation. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it's fair to say.
Had you ever heard the term subluxation, or did anybody ever take any films of you or scans or anything like that to evaluate you?
No, it wasn't deemed necessary at the time, and subluxation was something I'd never heard of at all.
Wow. So did you kind of leave those experiences being well, I don't even know if these guys are real doctors, or kind of what was your feel of it? You just thought that maybe it served a purpose just for musculoskeletal pain?
Exactly. That's exactly how I felt.
Okay. So kind of share with our audience, what was your experience like? Well, I guess we'll start with what did you feel when you first came here, and why did you come here?
I came here because I was almost crippled with bone-on-bone problems in my neck that made it painful and frightening, frankly, whenever I moved my neck. And I was totally tensed up and emotionally in very bad shape.
Wow. And what were the medical doctors telling you about that bone-on-bone type of pain and things you were going through? What were they wanting you to do?
Take medications.
Okay, so medications, had anybody mentioned anything like surgery or anything like that?
Oh yes, if this doesn't work, then we will have to surgically
we will have to, forced to.
Yes.
There's no other way. I love when they say that, right? We're going to force you to do this. You have to. There's no other way. It's interesting how that works. Had you ever heard about your friends going through surgeries like that?
Not friends. I heard some secondhand descriptions of acquaintances, people they knew. Most people came out, in my opinion, just as bad as they went in, because it wasn't fixed. It may have been alleviated, but they always had it.
So what I kind of hear you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they kind of put a Band-Aid on things instead of getting to the root cause.
Surgically.
It's interesting how that works, right?
Yeah.
Look at you. You went to somebody conventional. You went to an MD. You went to somebody that's kind of like what I call a relief care chiropractor, and then you're not getting better, and everybody's putting on these Band-Aids, but nobody's getting to the cause, and so you kind of leave walking away. The patient leaves walking away, or at least this has been my experience. What the heck? I invested all this money and this time, and nothing really changed or happened.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of share with our viewers, what was your experience when you started coming here, and maybe just share one thing that you found out or learned about chiropractic that you didn't know before.
Well, the way that you explained the connection between the chiropractic that you do and the nervous system and the way the whole body is one unit governed by our spine and our nervous system, I just fell right away for the idea, because it made so much sense. And if you stopped and thought about it, you realize that there's no way that you can function in a healthy way with this type of subluxation.
It's interesting you say that, because what we deal with all the time is people that are skeptical in what we do, but they're not skeptical in the thing that's almost killed them and their family members, that's never gotten them better, all these things, right? And so it's really awesome to see a patient like you that says, you know what, it just kind of made sense to me. It didn't make sense that I wasn't getting better, and I obviously didn't want to do the same thing and expect a different result, right? I'll try the same thing, even though I haven't gotten a result up to this point. And so that's awesome. That's really, really, really cool. So you're like, okay, it just makes sense. This is something that I want to do. Were there any other things besides your neck stuff that you came in with that you wanted to see go away, or maybe things that went away that you never even thought it was possible they could go away?
I was so unaware when I came in here of the number of things that were distressing me.
Okay.
Some almost overwhelmingly so, some less so, but I really was totally out of touch with myself.
And I think what you're sharing, and I don't want to share anything that you don't want to share with our viewers today, but you basically, it sounds like you're saying like emotional stuff, like those subconscious, I call them blind spots that weigh us down, and where they steal your joy and they really put you in a state of surviving instead of thriving. And that was kind of going on with you. Is that what you're sharing?
Definitely.
Okay. Okay. And I see that a lot in people. For you, would you say there was one thing in particular that you felt like was dragging you down with your life and that created awareness for you, or that you got awareness around when you started coming in the office? Any one thing that sticks out? And if you don't want to share, like I said, it's okay.
Well, I've been having a lot of domestic difficulties.
Okay,
Sorry.
It's all right. Mine's easy. I got mine right here, so I don't have to worry about it.
My husband's mental condition and physical condition had been a tremendous burden for quite a while, and it continued to deteriorate for a number of years till it finally became critical on many levels, and I was just overwhelmed.
And you're taking care of him, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so obviously you've been taking care of him. I can't remember exactly. I apologize. What, 1, 2 years, 3 years?
It's over 2+ years.
And that's a full-time job, correct?
Yes.
And so it's interesting you say that, because I can't imagine being in a situation. I've got guardianship of my dad, and that's a distant thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that being my everyday life. And so, it sounds like just in engaging with you, it sounds like there's been a lot of joy taken, or just a lot of things that, people that don't deal with that take for granted. Like where they're showing up, they have a smile on their face, they look forward to certain things, or maybe vacations or going somewhere or whatever, but when something's consuming your life to that degree, kind of seems like in my interaction with you, it just cuts everything off at the legs, or kind of like, why am I here type of thing. It
was very difficult to find my way, very difficult, and I didn't know where to turn, and frankly, a person who happens to be a mutual acquaintance and a member of your practice suggested that I come here, and I was so happy she did.
Katie Bacon, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so Katie Bacon, I call her Bacon Bits. Amazing patient. She's a dental hygienist, and she had mentioned to Noelle, I think just when you were in for a routine appointment, hey, why don't you go to my holistic neurological chiropractor? Mm-hmm. And when people hear about that, they're probably like, right? You probably do like the Scooby-Doo thing. You're like, what is that? What does that mean? Well, there's actually like 300 different techniques in chiropractic. So, most people, they're like, well, I got rubbed on and they did this deal, and they made me feel good, but it never got to the cause, so I'm not even going to try that again. It's like when you ask people and you're like, oh, so what have you tried? Oh, I've tried everything. You tried 2 things. It's not everything. That's 2 things, right? But it's interesting. So when Katie told you that, were you merely checking it out because you were frustrated, or were you checking it out because you like really trust Katie and you were like, man, I'm going to go to this place?
Well, Katie's a great person, and I knew she wouldn't steer me wrong.
That's definitely true about Katie, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I was so desperate. It's not that I tried anything, but it's that I said, well, I don't really understand it, or let me go try, because I was desperate for help.
And so go ahead and kind of share with the viewers, within those first couple of weeks, what did you start to notice? And if you want to share the sit down that we had after a month or so, that's fine, however much you want to share.
Well, I found that I didn't fully understand the connection between subluxation and my mental state.
Okay.
And after my first NET, I began to connect the dots. I found the emotional release that I got after my adjustments absolutely dazzled me, because it was so obvious why I was feeling better.
So when you got adjusted at the brainstem, because we're all about really correcting the curve, getting the atlas bone or brainstem bone, which is up under the ears right here. We want it to look like an airplane taking off. We want it to be sitting right at 31 degrees. And then the curve in the neck, we want that to be in the shape of a banana, and the head should be back over the shoulders. So what I'm hearing is nobody had ever told you about those parameters. So when we started to work on the brainstem, you're like, wow, this whole like connection between my brain and like my emotions, like you started to actually feel that in your body, that change?
I did. It was dramatic. As a matter of fact, I didn't believe it at first. It was just accidental. I was just in a better mood or something to that effect. But every single time I had an adjustment, I always felt relief. I felt more emotionally stable. And I also began to be more physically stable in that I could walk more comfortably, my balance improved. And I won't say it was just one dramatic event after another. It was like layers each time.
Yeah. So it took you, it's what I always tell people, right? It took you 20, 40, 60 years to get in a state or condition that you're in right now. But some people think that it's, oh man, drop the mic, it's all going to change right then and there. Just health and healing, true health and healing, it doesn't happen that way. Mm-hmm. So it's a slow progressional layered process. Just like degeneration, disease, and inflammation. It's a slow, layered process of not doing the things that you need to do chemically, physically, and emotionally to be successful. And you hit this point of critical mass. But you're saying you started to notice it, and as you started seeing those layers, I guess that went back to the education that you had gotten here, and you're like, oh wow, so that's what he meant when he said this or he said that.
Yes, I wouldn't say in the beginning that I really thought that you have to be patient and not that I expected instantaneous change, but
yeah.
I thought, well, okay. But as it went on and I understood how I felt better each time, I understood the necessity of the continuity much more clearly.
Love that. Absolutely love that.
Much.
That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So what are you experiencing now? Like what awarenesses have you had now? What's changed and shifted for you now? And what do you love about your life now?
My reality situation has not changed.
With your husband, you're saying?
Externally.
Yeah.
And I don't really expect that it will get a lot easier in the near future. What I do understand is that I am now equipped to deal with it much more competently, with much less wear and tear, for lack of a better term, on myself, because I am able to be more objective and I'm able to be more accepting of my reality. The discharge of so many of the built-up emotions that I had left me not as clear as I should have been about my judgments and about how I've felt about things. And once I got my clarity back, I feel that I'm much more capable of being an equitable caregiver and also having my own personal identity.
You know what I think is beautiful about that is I remember the first 2 weeks with Noelle. People come in and they come in all sorts of different ways. They come in and just with hurt. They come in with hurt on their face, hurt in their bodies, and their life's just not working right. And I remember you coming in that way, and I remember you coming in with a face and a little bit of that fiery New York attitude, which I'm familiar with because my wife's from Long Island, and all my best friends are from New York now. Go figure, an Alabama boy that grew up in Seattle, but it's just the way it is now. I love New York. And it's really interesting because there was just this protective armor around you. And within a very short period of time, that armor came off and you started to smile. And I thought that was one of the biggest and most amazing things. I remember one of the first adjustments you had, you literally started crying. Just because you were able to release that and really get back to source and back to innate. Can you share with our viewers, if you feel comfortable doing it, and like I said, this is only what you feel comfortable sharing, kind of what happened to you over between your adjustments the last couple of weeks, and then what you shared with me a few minutes ago about this past weekend, after we did some emotional techniques on you, and of course we did the most important thing at the brainstem, and we were working with that and getting that 31-degree angle right. After we did all that though, you had a big, another awareness, another shift happen for you. Can you kind of share what, in your words, what you felt, and use some specific terminology with me, but go ahead, I just wanted you to share that.
Well, when I had that release, I started to cry. I'm not a big crier by nature, I'm, as you know. And the ability to cry and really experience how I was feeling was so liberating and allowed me to think about, why am I so sad? My husband's reality situation and how it affects me is one thing. But the reason I react to it the way that I do, and the reason it takes the toll on me, is because of my childhood. Because it replicates so many of the emotions that I felt then. As you know, you took, with your manipulations, adjustments, you were able to release all
So sweet, we've trained her. See, she knew I was cringing inside when she said manipulation, right? So she's like, I better save him before we have to do emotional work on him. I'm playing with you. I'm playing with you.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm playing with you. I'm playing with you. But it does show. It's like, that just shows you when somebody's really into the culture of what we do here. They neurologically get it. Like Noelle innately knows, well, manipulation's unspecific. It's global. You're not doing a manipulation after you look at a film. You don't get changes like this on a manipulation. But a specific scientific corrective adjustment, according to somebody's films, and really enrolling them in a new possibility with a transformation, that's what happens when you work with the brainstem. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's quite all right.
So you were sharing then?
Yes, and I was able to almost purge, lack of a better word, the sadness of my childhood and growing up experiences, which left me almost robotic in the way I did life to protect myself. And I was able to cry, remembering each kind of segment of my life and how I felt all the way through the weekend, which was totally unknown to me as a possibility. And by the time the weekend was over, I had a sense of proportion and a sense of commitment and a sense of feeling, okay, I can do this, I can be a decent person, I can be responsible, and I can still be me.
Wow. Isn't this like the most beautiful, elegant, amazing woman inside and out that you've ever seen? I just like adore this woman. She's unbelievable. So real quickly, if you had anything else, I don't want to cut you off. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
No, I'm sure I will in the future.
Great.
Because I'm sure this is going to be an ongoing process.
Well, absolutely, right? Because after we get all these changes and we get this transformation, it's just like going to a dentist. We just want to maintain those changes, maintain them for our entire life, so we can have that joy, and we can really always go non-invasive before we go invasive. There's a time for medical surgery and drugs, but it's emergency room care. And so many people have been led to believe this lie that it's a first responder. Should be a second or third responder, right?
Oh, I agree.
So let me ask you this real quickly, and then we're going to finish up, folks. You know, at one of the things you told me, I guess it was maybe a month in, we had to sit down, and Noelle was talking about like discontinuing care after a month. And could you share with our viewers what was going through your head, and then just the conversation we had, and then how you left that conversation? I think that'd be very valuable.
Yeah, I thought, well, with what I'm dealing with on the outside, it's just futile for me to try to heal, because I'm pushing against myself. I'll wait until this phase of my life is over, and then I'll come back and because I knew I was committed at that point to getting better, to healing. And you convinced me that there is no good time to come back, to try again. Every single day I'm going to be dealing with something, and every single day it's going to continue my subluxation process, and I'm just, if nothing else, I will be able to hold my resilience in place I may not be able to move that much far forward while so much is happening, but at least I won't backtrack.
Yeah, because it's like, what does trying later mean?
Exactly.
It means never, right? Oh, I'm going to try to do that later. Oh, we'll do that later. I'll think about it. I'll call you tomorrow, right? It's one of those things. It's never going to happen, right? It's like I tell people, when people walk out that door sometimes and they leave and they make that mistake, I think in 7 years of doing this, maybe I've had 2 people come back, you know? So it's interesting when people want to procrastinate and they want to put their health last and on the back burner, what happens to them? And so thank you for sharing that, because I always want people to know that. Like, we think sometimes that control and fear and hanging on and pushing harder, especially with my male patients, they think that, especially the business guys, they're the worst. The guys that are successful, doing really well, crushing it monetarily or financially, they think that that's like the end game. But what's the collateral damage? Their family's falling apart. Their relationships are falling apart. And they have all this money, but all their joy is gone. So it's basically like they worked their entire life to get to this point, and then when they get there, they're like, wow, look at everything I left in the dust. There's nothing left. And sometimes there's nothing left of themselves. And so I really try to get that across to people that, when you're enrolled in a new possibility and a transformation that allows you to step outside of your current reality and step in and try on something new, like if you actually get just locked onto that idea, it's amazing what can happen, just like you. It's different, but it's basically the concept of just, saying, I'm going to buy into my health right now. And instead of being the guy that's turning the pages of my book, of my life, I'm going to be the author. I'm going to be the author. So you chose to do that, and I'm so proud of you. I'm going to get choked up. So proud of you, because your transformation has been amazing, and you're going to continue to kick butt. And I don't know what's going to happen to your husband, but I know that these years are going to be the best years of your life, because now you got your joy back.
I do.
And so thank you for sharing today. We feel so honored, so blessed to have you in this practice. And God bless you. You have an amazing day, and you folks have an amazing day too. Hopefully you got something and you got touched like I did. Have a great week. Take care.